Well, hi guys. Hopefully this finds you very well. My name's Paul. This is Plan Z. Welcome to the session. After the last little video that had the same kind of thumbnail, but obviously different subject, I was asked about slicers. So I thought, you know what? I've got 5 patches for us to look at. We're using 4 different amps, and we've got a Deluxe. We've got one with a twin, another one with a Vox, and then 2 patches with oranges. The guy who's asked about it is using an orange. And I've got a couple of interesting things set up here that we're going to come back to. But to start us off, we're going to go, I think it's just here. Yeah, lovely. So I did the video that's kind of instigated this one, really. I took a tremolo and then tried to create a harmonic tremolo out of that by splitting the signal and putting 2 tremolos. I'll link the video below. Now, what I thought was, I remember once someone saying to me, slicers, this is back in the day when I was a young lad, slicers, they're like tremolos on speed. And if you've ever kind of, partied hard, you'll know that the people around you that did speed, they kind of did that. They kind of sliced things up and then spit it out. So a slicer does that. It takes your signal and it just slices it up into different rhythmic shapes depending on the pattern you choose here. In GT1000 we've got a bunch of patterns, don't know, about 20, 25, something like that. This isn't a deep dive into how many patterns it does, this, that and the other. What this is 5 patches that are going to show you different ways that you can use a slicer, and it's up to you to experiment with what kind of patterns and rates you like, okay? But to start us off, I put in the slicers here so that we could hear what happens to them if we do the same thing that we did with the tremolos. So what I've done is I've set 2 slicers up here. They're both set exactly the same. The GT at 80 and the attack at 20, which means I'm softening the curve of it. We'll get into that in just a little minute. We're going to move this divide around the amp. Now, I've set the other side exactly the same, as I say. Yes, the same rhythm, same everything, but we've got no dry mix in this channel. So we don't hear any of our dry signal, it's just being sliced up. If we want to hear some of our dry signal, we would just bring it through and mix it to our taste. Okay? But there's normal level, okay? So, but let's just take that out. And let's see what happens when we just double it. So, let me just take this chorus off. Let's go double. So what I've got going on is we're splitting the signal, so we're dealing with over 315 Hertz on a high pass filter on the A channel. The B channel is a low pass filter, 315, so the opposite. And then at this end I just open the divide to 50. We're in stereo, so all it's doing is taking the 2 signals, and rather than playing on top of each other like that, they're just slightly askew-if. And we can make that more skew-if. But let's hear what happens when we just put it into left-right stereo. We'll change the shape and we can play up the middle. So now we've got the slices, and we could change the rhythms of those, the attacks of the different size, and have different things being sliced. We could put a distortion in front of one, or use other effects with it. But for the moment, I'm just going to put this back on single, and what I'm going to do now is place this after the amp. I've got in some other patches we're going to be looking at it before the amp, but in this one, let's just see now what happens when. Let me just change this so we're completely dry now. Let's hear that again, but directly after the amp. No verbs. Let's double it. It's quite a nice effect. Now again, if you were using like a GX and your amp was here, not in a divide like mine, because I know you've only got one divide, but you had your amp coming through into this, if you want to hear some of your dry signal, just bring it through. But just bring it through on one channel. Yeah, because if you bring it through on the other channel, you'll be doubling it, and where we've split things at the end here, you're going to get some funky business happening. Okay, where it will be splitting your signal, your dry signal, and doing exactly the same thing. All right. I think I've just noticed. Oh no, maybe there's no, it's not a light. So anyway, so that's happening there, and what happens when we just simply double it using a divide? Okay, so now let's do the stereo thing with that. So they've got a slightly different energy there, you can hear, because the frequencies are different. One is thinner, one is richer. Alright, because the lows are on the right and the highs are on the left. Yeah, get my right way around. So now what happens when we stick a chorus on that, on the low? If you're in headphones, that's quite nice, isn't it? Let's go. Just changing pickups there to see what the difference might be. So now if we put this in front of the amp, where we're working in stereo isn't going to work for us because you'd be in mono, okay? So what we're going to do now is go and have a look at the first orange patch. So let's get up to patch 31, bank 31. We've got a couple of different types of slicer going on in here. Now in this patch, ignore all of this setup at the moment. Just imagine that wasn't there, it was just the amp and EQ. It's just how I store my divides when I'm not using them. Now I've got a divide here, and I've got a slicer in front of the amp. Now the slicer is just set to an early one of the patterns, so a different pattern to before. I'm not picking patterns specifically, I'm going to let you do that in your own experimentation. I just want to give you some ideas. I've got my rating at 57. Have your trigger on or off. I haven't yet gone, you know, I normally just kind of put the trigger on when I notice it's off, and I didn't do that in the last patch, but here I've got the level at 50 and the attack is in the middle and the duty is in the middle. So when I engage it, there's none of the dry signal coming through, and it's going to be slicing my dry signal, okay? Then it comes into the amp where when I engage the slicer, I've got a chorus that comes on. So let's just hear what this does. Now what I've got is a divide. Let me explain that in a moment. So there's the amp. Let's turn on the slicer. Now you can hear the reverb. Let's turn the reverb. Now if I want this louder, I can. And I'm going to stay at 60 there, I think. Let's see how we get on. Because I don't want it to be too overpowering in my mix. So I might just pull it back a touch. Just take the edge off. Okay, but when I engage that, I've got a chorus that comes on with it. And this divide here splits my signal. It goes, at the divide side, it goes to dual. And then it goes left, right, with the spread in the middle at 50, yeah? So we get, okay, so we split it around us. Now how might I use that? Let's just go, what I'm going to do is bring in some beat and some bass. Do we want to boost it? Let's get our verb on. Let's just go with high gain, see what happens there, pull back the pickup. No, I'm just going to stay with the medium gain. Okay, so let's just come in, and I might even try taking a loop. Let's see how we get on. Yeah, I'm going to take a loop on the second round. I made any changes there, but that's a simple way of using a slicer. Stick it in front, but I've given it some extra spunk, and I've split it stereo for my mix. I'm just going to save that patch, and now I'm just going to use my high gain, come up the middle. This is going off into GT1000 cabinets where we're using the orange, ribbon 121 and a 57. Okay, so yeah, that's quite a nice way of using it. Now another thing we could do, let's bring all that to a close. In the patch that's next to it, I'm using a humanizer. Hang on. Okay. So in this patch I've got 2 notes dynamic IR on the output, but what we're going to do is not listen to that. We're going to switch across into the wet channel. Now in the wet channel I'm doing a couple of different things, but in this I'm using a humanizer in conjunction with a slicer. Okay. In the next patch we're going to be, there's another 2 patches. The last one is a bit more like the SL20 where there's a looper involved. But here we come in, we're hitting a delay. It's an analog delay on very short tempo, 12 milliseconds I think I got there, but a longer feedback. We come in, we hit distortion, we hit the noise suppression, then a reverb. So that mess that's going on there gets thrown into these 2 channels here, where if I isolate what's going on the side where the slicer is, I'm slicing up what comes off after the reverb, and then again sticking a chorus on it. So let's just hear what's there. So very similar to the vibe of the last one, but used in a wet sense. Okay? So it's sounding less and less like a guitar. Now on the other side, I just need to sort out the mix, but we'll see how we get on. Actually, what I might do here is just look at what's going on. There's no dry coming through there. It's just doing, let's have that trigger on while I spot it, and we'll leave ourselves like that. Now on the other side, I'm blending it with a humanizer where I'm using the 2 voice, but I've got this rate here on the internal pedal, so it's kind of cycling through the rate. So so it gets faster and then slower. Okay, so what I'm doing is blending that with this. Alright, so let's just put them so they're blended. And what I'm going to do is just go to the dry channel, press stop, save, and then I'm going to go back so it's just wet, and then take another loop. So this time, let's just try something different. So I've taken a loop of that. Let's bring in the other one we took earlier. Okay. So whilst that's playing, I'll turn it off in just a second, but let's go down to where my Deluxe is. What we'll do is we'll just stop the beats. Hear those play out. Okay, so now in this patch, when we land on it, I've got a Deluxe in this channel here. If you're a GX user, forget about these divides that are going on here. Focus on this one here. You want to split your signal, so your dry signal is going in path A, and path B, what I've done is I've put a compressor after the cabinet. We're using the Deluxe 2 from the last update. Now I've got a delay with a short time, 250, middle feedback, taking the high cut back a little bit. None of the dry mix coming through. Remember, it's a wet channel. So then we slice that using, I think, pattern 7. Okay, no direct mix coming through. Then that hits a dual delay where I'm set to left right, so it's splitting the delays to left and right, where I've got a mono running on 1500, and I've got another mono running on 500. The feedback's longer on the 500 at 20, and it's at 0 on the longer timed one. No high cuts or anything in this because I'm already dealing with the highs before. And again, here we do have some of the dry mix coming through. So this is kind of giving us the sense. If I go just into the wet channel, okay, so after that, I've put I think an 8-stage phaser is that, where I'm going quite wet with that. I've got the biphase on, the separation at 100. The highs aren't touched, but the low damp's on. Lows cut to 160, highs aren't touched because I want it to kind of sit up there in that area. Okay, bit of the dry, even level of both mixes coming through there for the phasing, but we could increase the phaser, but it's going to make the signal jump in and out. You see, where it's phasing, the lower frequencies and higher frequencies will come through at different volumes to the in-between frequencies, and it makes it jump around a little much. So I want that maybe even a little bit, so it isn't too jumping around. I could manage that with the compressor, but I want it to have some movement and jumping, but just not too much. Then I've put I've put a chorus on that, and that's just really kind of helping with the stereo spread of things. Okay, all the direct mix coming through, it's only chorusing at 50%, and that goes into a reverb where I'm totally wet, got the Hall 2 on, got all the direct coming through. Okay, so how I might use that might be like this. Taking the loop, I'm just going to save my patch. Can't remember if I changed anything there. And now I'm just going to go to a Deluxe, go to a high gain. Let's stick on a bit of verb. So what it's doing to my mix is just adding some movement that I'll play around within my mix, if that makes sense. Let's bring up our other one from earlier. Yeah, so we can get into layering your slices, it's quite good fun. So now let's go down to our last patch, where we want to go to is here, where I've got to set up a Vox. Where we've got a low, medium and high gain, but when we come into the patch, we're just splitting the signal. Now here, this is a more complex patch. Let's just turn that off. Yeah. Now, what we're doing here is we've got our cabinet set to 212.4, which is the Vox, and my dry signal. This is quite a complex sound. I want to try and explain it and try and find the simplest way. So the dry signal comes out of path A. All right. I can, if I want to. Let's just engage the wet channel. Now the wet channel comes solely through the sub outs, where here we've got a reverb, and if I turn up my volume, pot your donut, you can hear the reverb. Now it's quite wet. Right, but what's going to happen is I've put a looper here, and when I come into this channel, after the looper, I've got a divide where I'm splitting the signal evenly, nothing funky happening in the divide here. But I've got a slicer doing one thing on one side, set like so, and on the other side, we're set slightly differently. Okay? I'm just going to put that trigger on, just out of habit. And I've put an octaver on this slicer here, and it's a very subtle thing, and it's only affecting the low notes, kind of the mid to low notes in the range. And then there's a compressor on that, stereo one. Now, the thing with this is, in the original SL20 there was a looper, so you could take a loop of your slice and then play over the top of that. Does that make sense? So rather than putting it in front of the amp in this scenario, because it's just, when you start doing that, it's a very intense sound, and if you want to play something over the top, you've got to have your mix of it a lot lower. So for the strategies I'm using is, depending on the type of track. So, but with this, what I wanted was something that was going to help me end a jam. So what we're going to do is I've set the looper up as a one pedal looper. So, and what I'll probably do is, because it's not on the floor, I won't be able to trigger it and play in time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a loop. I'm just going to start the beat. Where are we? And I'll start a recording first. So, what I will be doing in just a moment, let's go for the full 8 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4, and play. Okay, so now that's playing, what I've got is, and I could have recorded that empty space while I am playing something over here, yeah? Because I'm completely bypassing it. Now I'm going to engage the slicers. What I want to do is take a little loop. Playing the reverb, it's taking a loop of what it receives from the reverb, yeah, and now that's playing, and I could now just come away from there if I want, and just now the other thing I've got going on here is let's play around with this mix. So that seems like a lot with the guitar on top of that, so we could, if we wanted to, open this up. We don't need to open the spreads here, that's quite wide enough to give us enough space. Okay, and that will play out. Now, I've got just after here a delay that I can put on, so when I put this delay on, it starts at 80% feedback, and I can push the toe up to 100, or maybe it starts at 90%, I can't remember. So I'm now up at 100, and I'm going to stop behind me on the bass, and I'm just going to pull that expression switch down and let my loop carry on playing. Now at this point, obviously the pedal board is on the floor. I'm doing a little nice chill spacey solo with a different reverb from another unit, or even the same reverb I've got in this patch. I've brought the delay back in, and I'm just gonna hit my last notes. The audience goes crazy. They can't believe what they've just heard. They heard stuff bubbling and moving around, and you were playing a little solo over the top. Obviously I wasn't doing that because I was using my hands here, and you've just used the looper in your GT1000 to help you play out the end of the song there, and you were able to just kind of bring it down to a, well, for me as a live looper, it gives me another dynamic to play with. Let's get rid of this feeding back delay. Okay, now let's hear that channel on its own. And to do that, what we want to do, Paul, turn that off and then do this manually. So all we've got happening in this channel is this. And that's what we were getting a loop of. I almost feel like I want that louder, and if I did, I could do one of several things. We could maybe look at increasing the attack on the compressor and then increasing the sustain just to bring it through a bit more. Oh yeah. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to put that back where it was. See, go to a low gain. Let's just stick on our wet. Let's stick on the slicers. That's a really nice bit of movement. Okay, I'm going to end that there. Hopefully you enjoyed the session, and it's given you some ideas of how you can use slicers with divides and other effects, or just on its own. Yeah, I'll catch you later. Take care. Bye-bye.